The 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals have really struggled to protect Joe Burrow this season. 13 sacks allowed through 2 games is easily the worst in the NFL in 2022. So can the New York Jets exploit their weaknesses and move above 500 for the first time since week 1 of 2018? Let's watch the tape and find out together. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? It's Luke here from PLAJ, and we're on the eve of the New York Jets versus Cincinnati Bengals at MetLife Stadium. And if the Jets want to win, and they have an opportunity to, they're going to need to exploit the Bengals' pass blocking ability. They've really struggled, and this is the area the Jets have the biggest advantage on the football field on either side of the ball. I wanted to look at that in the film today and how much the Bengals have struggled, and we're going to start by looking at number 67, Volson, who's their left guard. He has struggled mightily against the bull rush, and that's something that Jonah Williams has an opportunity to exploit heavily in this matchup. Off the snap here, first play, you're going to see him on the right-hand side of your screen against Hayward, number 97, beats him to the outside shoulder, stacks and sheds, and then gets to Joe Burrow in the backfield. You can just see how easily he displaces him. Does a great job getting tight hands. That means Volson is very wide. He's easily pushed back. He has no control at the point of attack. And that allows Hayward to then go back through the inside shoulder, re-establish his hands, and get to Burrow. That's just one example, but we've seen multiple of these on tape, and that's where Jonah Williams lines up time after time in this Ulbrich-Salah scheme. Just another example of the exact same matchup leading to the exact same result. This time on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see Volson, number 67. Hayward's going to go straight through his chest. This time he sells an outside rush, just straightens and goes straight through with the long inside arm. Look at the movement and how he forces Joe Burrow into TJ Watt, who's now obviously injured. But this is a sack allowed by Volson. I don't care what the statistics say. He just gets bull rushed with that long inside arm of Hayward, and he's displaced so easily. He has been pushed back on these bull rushes way too often, and if you have that pressure on the interior, Joe Burrow's going to panic. He's going to drop his eyes, and Jonah Williams could have an absolute field day. This is the last example I have of Volson, but this is more an issue I have with Zac Taylor and some of the schemes and things he asks his offensive line to do. Right now, this isn't even really a heavy run fake or play action fake, but you're asking your guard to pull across the formation and block TJ Watt one-on-one. This seems extremely unnecessary and unrealistic. This is not, a heavy play action where you're expecting the linebackers to jump downhill. Look at the handoff. They're not even really selling play action, but you're asking your guard to come across and block one of the most athletic outside linebackers in the game. You can see he's got no opportunity. I don't really put this on Volson. I think Zac Taylor is sometimes unrealistic in what he asks from his offensive line and the lack of talent that they have. Another guy who has struggled mightily to start the 2022 season is Jonah Williams, who plays left tackle for the Bengals. He was pretty good last year in their Super Bowl run, but there were a couple of reps, particularly against Hightower in the Steelers game, where he really struggled. Look, I'm aware that Hightower has been one of the best rushers to start the season. He has 4.5 sacks, but here are a couple of examples of him getting beaten to both shoulder. This time, Hightower beats him with a wicked spin move to the inside, gets to Burrow, and once again Burrow looks to extend the play and ends up being sacked. But I just think that Jonah Williams opens his hips up a little bit too early here, invites Hightower to spin through with the inside move, and that flushes Burrow. We're going to get into this a little bit more about how Joe Burrow, when he's forced to escape the pocket, drops his eyes, becomes a runner first, and often doesn't get rid of the football and take some of these sacks. But here was an example of Jonah Williams getting blown by to his inside, and now we're going to see the opposite of that. We talked about the inside move. This is just later in the game. Hightower going straight past Jonah Williams with this little Euro step footwork. He almost threatens to go through the chest with a bull rush, but in the end goes to the outside and rips around the corner. You could see this from a Jermaine Johnson or even Bryce Huff if he's activated. This is a move I think you could likely see from the Jets defensive line. Hightower gets around the edge. He causes the strip fumble, ends up being a Steelers ball, but he's just been beaten to the inside on the spin move. Now he gives up the outside because he's late with his hands, doesn't move his feet well enough and travel, and that is going to cause a lot of issues for Joe Burrow. Now, when we shift over to the Dallas Cowboys tape, I think it's a good time to explain that they've run into 2 or 3 of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Hightower, they are guys who are going to be premium players at the edge position this season. Here's an example of Lyle Collins on the other side getting beaten. Micah Parsons just winning to the inside with a wicked comeback. Just the way he pushes that shoulder, swims back to the inside, and then still manages to keep his feet. Look at the balance and the control to get back to Joe Burrow. What I'm saying here is, yes, the Bengals' offensive line has been poor, but they've come up against some ridiculous talent. The Jets don't quite have this ilk of player, so you're going to have some of these sacks. So not all of this is the fact that the Bengals are playing terribly. They've also come against some outrageous opponents, but occasionally it's coming down to communication and things the Bengals are doing wrong, and that's where these examples kind of come into play. This one here, for me again, whether this is a miscommunication from the offensive line or Zach Taylor asking too much of his players, you've got on the left-hand side of your screen Armstrong, the defensive end, number 92, going one-on-one with a tight end in pass protection, and he just annihilates him and just engulfs Joe Burrow. And it's no surprise because you're asking your tackle and guard to sell this kind of zone blocking scheme, so they're kicking to the inside. And because you're after that run fake and the linebacker's coming downhill, your pass protection is compromised. The tight end has to block a defensive end one-on-one, and the Bengals don't have those dudes. They're struggling to block defensive linemen with offensive linemen one-on-one. You can't ask that of a tight end when they're struggling this much. They don't get enough impetus off the run fake, and it ends up being a sack. Here's another one. This, I think, is a miscommunication. They're showing 6 here with this double A gap blitz of the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Jets need to show some more of these pressures, because look what happens when Micah Parsons just springs free straight in Joe Burrow's face. Look, I understand some people will think here that Joe Burrow's throwing hot on Micah Parsons and they intentionally left him one-on-one. If that's how they want to do it on a 6-man protection, with 6 men threatening to rush, I think they're making a terrible mistake. I think there's much better ways to handle this as an offensive line and as a protection. I don't know in the end why the right tackle Lyle Collins bumps down. He just doesn't need to do it on DeMarcus Lawrence. That lets Parsons go around the edge, and he gets an easy hit on Joe Burrow. These are the little things. You need to be better with the details, handling these exotic looks, and that's something the Bengals have not done at all. Very similar look here. Now we get this 6-man front from the Dallas Cowboys. You've again got linebackers in that double A-gap position. You've got 4 defensive linemen. Again, they bail out. You can see what should have happened the first time. This time you get Lyle Collins kicking out, but they've got this little double stunt twist happening from the outside where they loop Parsons on the inside and also number 56. They actually do a pretty good job blocking it up. There's a little bit of penetration to the inside. This is where the eyes and the inability to get rid of the football of Joe Burrow really come into play. He escapes here. He has an opportunity to throw away the football. He can see that he's under heavy pressure, but he spins out of it. He wants to extend the play. He spins, he steps back, and he takes a sack. And he puts his team in some negative positions. Look, he has the after the structure ability, does Joe Burrow, but it's also going to lead to him taking some sacks. And again, we see the Bengals with this double A-gap look allow a sack. And the last play we're going to look at in the review, again talking about Joe Burrow. Stepping up in the pocket, they do a pretty good job keeping him clean. Look, Micah Parsons wins to the inside against Lyle Collins. Again, I'm not going to bang on Collins for that because it's pretty tough to block that guy. Joe does a nice job navigating the pocket. He's still in a pretty good space, but he drops his eyes, he wants to run, there's a spy there in Leighton Vander Esch, and it's not a great decision, and he takes another sack. These are the things the Jets need to do. They need to be patient, and they need to make sure they have someone spying him, because so often he looks to break, contain, and take off. And he had 3 or 4 runs so far this season for 15 plus yards. And you can see they eventually corral him. But watch out for Joe Burrow dropping his eyes and taking some unnecessary sacks. You've seen it already on tape. So that is the matchup that the New York Jets need to win. They need to exploit, and they need to dominate in this area. If they want to stop the Bengals offense, they have a great opportunity to get in Joe Burrow's face. Carl Lawson, Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers. You've got Jermaine Johnson, the rookie. Maybe Bryce Huff gets some reps. They've got an opportunity to come in and dominate. Let's see if they can execute.